Let's get started for the evening. Thank you for that. We usually have an intro montage video thing to kind of let people know we're getting started, but this month we're going low tech. So, welcome to Nerd Night. Welcome back. I hope you all had a great summer vacation. I think it was summer at least. I didn't go outside that much because the sun was trying to kill everyone. But here we are. I am your host, Andrew. If you've been here before, you might notice that I'm slightly different from our usual Andrew. That Andrew, you can tell apart from me because he is from Canada, and he's currently in Canada at the moment. You can also tell the difference between us because he looks like he's auditioning for a Highlander reboot. You know, this month you have out an MC who's wearing pants, not a kilt. But anyway, I'm glad to be here. It's my first time hosting Nerd Night. So, speaking of which, who is a first timer here?
Wow. Oh, damn.
Welcome to Nerd Night. We are the Tokyo branch of an international network of Nerd Night events just like this one. In fact, if you find yourself in Kansai or Kyushu or Okinawa, you can find other Nerd Nights in Japan as well. So here's how this works. We're going to have two speakers tonight. Each of them is going to speak for about 20 minutes, and then after that, we're going to have about 20 minutes of open Q&A and discussion. So any of you can ask questions, we can discuss all of that, and then in between the speakers, we'll have about a 20-minute break where you can socialize and get drinks and such. We'll be finishing up at about 10:15 or so. We have to be out of here at 10:30. Let's see. I also have some breaking news to share from America, which is usually a terrifying thing to say. It's clicker will work.
Did it go to sleep?
Did you go to sleep? Hang on. Sorry, we're working with completely different technology than we usually do this month. Okay, let's try it. Yes, breaking news. I found this on the breaking news section of Kyoto News this morning. Once again, a Japanese research team has won an Ig Nobel Prize. Yay! Yes, apparently it is true. If you paint stripes on your cattle, fewer flies bite them. So if you make your cattle look like zebras, apparently it actually does help keep the flies away. So if you're not familiar with the Ig Nobel Prizes, they are an annual tradition at Harvard where prizes are given out for research that sounds absurd or ridiculous on the surface, but actually has a point or some sort of great meaning to it. So I'll be sharing an article about this later on our SNS. You can look up with all of the winners. Anyway, before I forget, and we'll be reminding you a few times, our next Nerd Night will also be right here on October 17th, as again Friday. We'll be advertising and making the announcements soon on our website. Also, please don't forget to buy drinks at the bar. We are able to enjoy this wonderful space here because of support from Gozan Park. And that comes because all of you come here and all of you buy drinks and food at the bar. So please continue to do so. As I mentioned, we'll have a break in between the two speakers. That will be your last chance of the night to buy drinks. So please make sure to do so. All right, so here's our agenda for tonight. Our first speaker will be Prasad Cheema, speaking about what mathematics taught him about living, and followed by Stéfan Le Dû on Turning Up the Heat, the evolution of climate change in the Civilization Videogame series. One more thing before we move on. If any of you would like to volunteer at Nerd Night, volunteers, please put up your hands for a moment. Please speak to any of the folks here that you see with their hands up, or to me afterwards. We can always use a lot of help, not only running the show from day to day. As you can see, it takes a huge crew of people to do video, photography, welcoming people at the door. We also need folks to help with things like SNS promotion. We need people to help with digital production in between. We need people to help edit the videos that we make. So, and of course we need speakers as well. So if you'd like to speak, please contact me and we can probably figure something out. Finally, if you're not on our mailing list, please join it. You can scan this QR code now. You can go to our website later, tokyo.nerdnight.com. We send out about 2 emails a month, usually, and maybe 1 or 2 more if there's some interesting events that we know about in other places, but usually it's no more than that. So let's get started.
Moment. We need to restart the cameras.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, like, digital cameras are limited to 30 minutes of recording, which is a weird thing, but like, apparently for tax reasons. Okay. Go on.
Okay, let's introduce our first speaker. Prasad Cheema completed his undergraduate degree and his PhD at the University of Sydney, Australia, double majoring in aerospace engineering and computer science for his undergraduate studies. His PhD research focused on applying AI to structural health monitoring in civil engineering structures. Now he works as a postdoctoral researcher at the National Institute of Informatics in Tokyo. His hobbies include partner dancing, I think that's bachata, salsa, Brazilian ho-ho, and samba, as well as video games and belting out Take Me Home Country Roads alongside Red-Faced Salaryman on Friday nights, including this Friday night, maybe. That's it. Prasad, please take the stage.
So I need to close this. We will get there. Give that a try. It's gonna be in. It's either that or it's me. Let's find out.
Okay.
Does it work? Or?
Yep. There.
Okay. So, thank you for coming to my talk. I'm basically here trying to dispel the general thought about mathematics as just a bunch of rules and numbers and formulas. Okay. So, I always thought maths was just numbers and formulas. I was wrong. That's boring. Real mathematics is actually a hidden philosophical framework for how to think and approach life as a general meta-narrative. And I'm going to try to help convey that. Okay, so mathematics is a huge field, and I wanted to try to narrow down what I think could be most approachable for the general audience, and try to summarize that as a simple list of phrases. Okay.
Prasad, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Would you mind holding the mic close? And sorry, we have low tech this time.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, if you could just speak up, that'd be amazing.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Okay, so Act 1, just because it's impossible, it doesn't mean you should stop. This will be explored with this notion of complex numbers. Act 2, rules are made to be broken. This is going to relate to geometry. Act 3, your mind can do the impossible. And we're going to try to get into the notion of infinities and infinities of infinities. Okay, Act 1. Just because it's impossible, it doesn't mean you should stop. Okay. So in Renaissance Italy, mathematicians actually competed for money trying to solve equations. I know it sounds crazy, right? So there was one mathematician called Cardano. Now, he could solve this kind of equation known as the cubic equation, blah, 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 blah. That's all by the by. But what his formula implicitly required is this notion of the square root of -1, which was at the time completely foreign and basically an impossible number, right? And even Cardano, even though the equations solved perfectly, he was still very, very uneasy with using these imaginary numbers. Oh yeah, and mathematicians were very, very serious. There is a famous duel between a mathematician called Galois arguing about women and equations. He lost the duel. Yeah, so it was very serious back in the days. Okay, so Cardano found these numbers. He called them impossible cases and fictitious numbers. And he admitted, oh, okay, so moving on to the next mathematician, Bombelli, he admitted that they were absolutely wild thoughts, but he used them anyway. And then we have René Descartes. He actually coined the term imaginary as an insult, calling them absolutely fake. Now, so then the stigma for hundreds of years was that these are useless and they basically have no meaning. Okay, the impossible victory. When useless became indispensable. Okay, so Raphael Bombelli, who you might remember from this slide, even though he hated them, he studied them in great detail. And now these numbers, which were once known as fake, fictitious, they are used in every Wi-Fi signal, in every electrical circuit, and used in quantum calculations. The ultimate irony was that originally they were coined as a derogatory term, imaginary numbers. But now they're basically more fundamental than real numbers. So the ultimate connecting thread. This wasn't academic curiosity. It was basically mathematical survival. For hundreds of years, mathematicians used this and they did not believe in these numbers. But they had to use them, or they had to admit that their greatest tool was fundamentally broken, right? So, lesson one, you should persist even when the world is doubting you. Even if mathematically, logically, these numbers make perfect sense, you should follow your base instinct. Okay, Act 2. Rules are made to be broken. Don't worry about the differential part, just be concerned about geometry. Okay, now for 2,000 years, there was an unquestionable mathematical holy text to do with geometry. And this goes all the way back to Euclid in his book called The Elements. Now, this image didn't quite pan out, but basically, Euclid had 5 fundamental rules for geometry. Number 1, a straight line can be drawn between any 2 points. Okay, simple. Number 2, any such circle is allowed to have a radius and a point of center. Number 3, a straight line can be extended indefinitely, right? So if I have a straight line, I can go infinitely there, I can go infinitely there, okay? Makes sense. Number 4, all right angles are equal. Now, number 5, parallel lines must remain parallel all the way until the end of time, right? It makes sense, it's simple. However, this postulate was proven wrong. And we basically implicitly have examples from artists. Look, okay. In order for art to make sense, we know parallel lines must eventually meet, right? So the artist already knew this. And this one postulate so pained mathematicians that there was a Hungarian mathematician called Farkas Bolyai, and he told to his son, I detest it as level intercourse. I have measured that bottomless night, and all the light and joy of my life went out there, just trying to understand parallel lines. Okay, so there was another Italian mathematician called Saccheri Girolamo. Okay, now he just had a very simple and basic idea. Okay, what's the most parallel thing that is not casually? A door frame, right? Because if it's not perfectly parallel, then your doors are not going to shut. Okay? What he did was he tried to draw a triangle on top of this door frame and look at it from different angles. And then he realized such a simple idea, which is quite shocking that it took that long to figure out, that geometry is based on your own perspective. Okay? So, normally, triangles, if you measure all the angles, they're supposed to add up to 180 degrees. But by violating this rule, that parallel lines do not have to remain parallel forever, right? All of a sudden, we have a triangle whose internal angles add up to more than 180 degrees. If you look at this kind of horse saddle, the internal angles can add up to less than 180 degrees. It's because we've been operating on this assumption that everything is a flat plane. So of course, that's going to add up to 180 degrees. Now, if you hear a physicist talk about that the universe is flat, they don't literally mean it in the normal sense. They mean it that if you measure a star, the internal angles add up to 180 degrees. That's why physicists label our universe as being a flat universe. But even then, even after this simple idea, he still wanted to call the idea absolutely false, because mathematics is supposed to be this pure thing, and it's not supposed to depend on perspective. So he hated this idea, and he didn't want to basically publish it or make it known to anybody. However, okay, so he is from 1733. It took basically 100 years more by a man called Riemann, who said that no, this hypothesis is true, okay? You can have many different geometrical surfaces, and you don't have to obey the parallel line postulate. And in doing so, okay, if you want to go from point A to point B on a curved surface, the closest way is not necessarily a straight line. I mean, if you travel on an airplane, you see these kind of curved geometries, right? So just by breaking that rule, he was able to revolutionize so many things. So much so that Albert Einstein was so inspired by his mathematics, he was able to create the theory of general relativity. And we have physical proof for that, because if you have a light, right, you would think point A, point B, draw a straight line. No, but we know that it curves around stars and galaxies, stars, black holes, and so on and so forth. And it was all coming back to the fact that he broke this single postulate. Parallel lines do not have to remain parallel forever. And if you kind of want a visual, if you imagine a sphere, okay, you have one point and another point, okay, initially they start parallel, but eventually they will meet up at like the North Pole. So what was initially parallel doesn't necessarily have to be parallel for forever. And then you can get triangles that add up to eternally greater than 180 degrees. And because of this discovery, you know, we have Google Maps that is very accurate, you know, GPS systems, we can travel around the universe and so on and so forth. Okay, so lesson 2 that I learned from mathematics. Rules are meant to be broken. Nothing is necessarily concrete, okay? You should be allowed to question everything. Okay, and then Act 3. Your mind can do the impossible. And this is the one that I hope I can get something across, because infinities are weird, and infinities of infinities are just adding more headache. Okay, so the simple question that breaks everything. How big is infinity? Okay, we talk about infinity in terms of the scale of the universe is infinitely big, or maybe, you know, God is infinitely amazing, and then it kind of gets obscured, right? So the obvious answer is infinity because it by definition has to be the biggest thing possible. But that is not necessarily true. Some infinities are bigger than other infinities. Okay, so we have the gut feeling. Okay, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's count the even numbers. 3, 4, 6, 8, 10. Intuitively, you think the even numbers, because it's missing every second, right, must be smaller than counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just counting everything. However, mathematically, they are the same size. They are both equal infinities. Okay, so let's try to play with this idea. Okay, 1. If you give me 1, I will give you 2. If you give me 2, I'll give you 4. If you give me 3, I'll give you 6. And so on and so forth ad infinitum, right? So if you can count them both the same way, they must be the same size. So all the counting numbers and all the evens, they represent the same infinity. Okay, now what's a bigger infinity than counting all the numbers? It is the numbers between 0 and 1, as crazy as that seems. Why? Okay, you give me 1, I'll give you 0.1. You give me 2, I'll give you 0.12. You give me 3, I'll give you 0.123. You give me 4, I'll give you 0.124. Okay, have we run out of that? Okay, I will start from 0.2. Okay, now I'm going to start from 0.3. And then, I mean, pi is an unending limit of digits, right? So the interval between 0 and 1, as crazy as that sounds, is a bigger infinity than counting all the whole numbers. So we have one infinity bigger than the other, because every number that you give me, I can give you a new number and then some more. So it's basically a counting game. Now, there is one mathematician, George Cantor. He logically figured this out, and because mathematics is supposed to be like some pure subject, he said that's basically impossible. I don't like the conclusion, and it gave him basically nightmares. Okay, I basically explained this. They're exactly the same size. Yeah, so basically you can partner up all of the numbers, and then the counting numbers and the evens and the odds and all the negatives are the same infinity, but not the decimals between 0 and 1. Yeah. Okay, Cantor's trick. Try to list all the decimals, then create one that can't be on your list. the shocking result, you literally cannot count all decimals. There are infinitely many more. And Cantor proved this with pure logic, and it drove himself to a mental breakdown. Because he didn't like that mathematics has this many holes, and there's one infinity, and there's another infinity, and one is bigger than the other. And one of the crazy things is this geometric impossibility that is also known as, I guess, Zeno's paradox, right? I can walk from here to there, right? It's a finite distance. But let me walk a half step, and then a half of that, and then a half of that, and then a half. Will I ever reach it if I keep splitting the distance by half? I mean, obviously, we know I can move from here to there, but you can break down geometry into infinitely many smaller pieces. So, for example, here I have a fractal, okay? Blah, 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 many zigzags. Now, let's half the zigzags. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's half the zigzags again, right? It can go infinitely many long, right? But the crazy thing is this is basically an infinite object that exists in a finite space. So you can store infinity into a finite space, right? And technically, what people like to say is, because I'm from Australia, technically the perimeter of Australia is infinitely long, but it exists in a finite size, because you can keep halving the distances ad infinitum, and that brings up one of the problems with infinity. We exist in a finite world, so mathematicians are playing this kind of crazy game where they're making up reality, right? Because because if you boil it down to an atom, it's eventually finite at some point, right? However, working with infinity has been a very invaluable tool for mathematicians. Okay, so lesson number 3. Your mind can do the impossible, right? We have been able to wield infinity and work with it in a practical sense, right? Which should be crazy, because we can't even imagine infinity. However, through mathematics, we have been able to yield infinity to very useful standards. So ultimately, for me, this is a tale in 3 acts. Act 1, just because it's impossible, it doesn't mean you should stop. And that came about with the imaginary numbers, the complex numbers, okay, to try to defy the system. Act 2, rules are made to be broken, okay? This came from violating the parallel line rules, okay? And then Act 3, your mind can do the impossible. And we talked about infinities inside of infinities and different sizes of infinity in a way that makes logical sense, right? It's basically a testament to the human mind. So ultimately, last slide, what mathematics actually teaches us. Every insane thought became a revolutionary idea. The square root of -1, which is an impossible number, it powers your phones. It powers quantum systems. We use these imaginary numbers, which I think is a bad term because it kind of puts people off understanding how they work. Because of course the term imaginary was mainly used as an insult initially. Okay, number 2, curved geometry. By breaking the fact that parallel lines have to be parallel forever. No, that's not the case. And it sounds crazy, but then it explains gravity. It explains Einstein's theory of general relativity. It explains phones and GPS satellites. And number 3, infinite hierarchies basically expanded our mind and intellectual thought. Now, what your teachers missed, math isn't about following rules. It's not about numbers or formulas or equations, right? It's not about what you learned in primary school, high school, blah, 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 blah. It's about questioning the obvious truths, and it's about embracing the impossible. Yeah, thank you.
So we are going to take a very quick break while we reset our cameras for the Q&A, and then we'll get started with the Q&A.
We're good. You're good.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay, and we can get started with the Q&A.
That was a great quick.
That was a very quick break, yes. All right.
There we go. Yeah, question about this one right here. You said that math isn't about following the rules, it's about questioning quote-unquote obvious truths.
Yes.
Well, I mean, for the overwhelming majority of the population who's dragged kicking and screaming into mathematics during public
Yes,
school,
yes.
it is about following the rules, and you just
And
get through it as
that
quickly as
is my,
possible.
my number one hatred, right? Because it's just not true. Like they say you start learning maths once you go to university. The problem I have is because, I mean, we have these beautiful, kind people who work in high schools, primary schools. Like, how do you convey to them? Because these are obviously like high-level ideas, but they represent the fundamental of mathematical thought. So like, part of like kind of my aim or mission is to kind of show this part. And then, yeah, kicking and screaming.
Well, there was actually a question.
Sorry.
At what point during your education did it become true that math wasn't just about following the rules?
So this was at university, and to tell you the truth, why this is really hard was because like one of my best friends, who's like an incredibly talented mathematician, he basically, when I spoke to him, he had this kind of perspective, like he was building a universe, which I found fascinating. Like, for example, okay, we've all been on the internet. We know the argument 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4, blah, 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 blah. That's how you end the arguments, right? However, I can name at least 10 ways that is not true. Okay, let me give you like an example that might help feel or see that perspective. What's 12 + 1?
I know it's not 13.
Come on, we have to play along.
13.
Just say 13 for my argument. Okay, 13. However, it can also equal 1. How do we get that result? 12 + 1 = 1. Does anybody have an answer? Go ahead.
The months of the year,
Huh?
from December to January.
It's a clever way. It's not what I'm thinking though. I'm thinking of something much simpler. Just look at a clock, right? Because we assume that the number system should work like a straight line, like it should be linear. But what if I take both ends and then I wrap it around so that we have a circular way of behaving maths? So it can be 13, it can also be 1. It depends on your perspective and what you're asking, right? And there is many more examples, but yeah, like that's why I said I can make 1 + 1 not equal 2. I can make 2 + 2 not equal 4 if I want to, right? Because in mathematics, I don't want to sound like egotistical, but you are basically like a creator. It's very perspective dependent, and you can basically make anything come into existence. Like, I can make 1 + infinity equal 1. But that's kind of advanced, so don't worry about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to ask, so as I was listening to your talk, I kind of got the image, right, that, in terms of the history of mathematics, we kind of started from, like this kind of pure, as you said, form of it, where we had like rules, right, and those rules were meant to be broken, and we should, follow those rules and build upon those rules, but then we kind of reach this point to where, okay, like these rules can be broken and they don't actually reflect our real world. But I was thinking, right, like math originally should have, originated from what we perceive from the real world to begin with, right, with all of its
Yes, and
flaws or like
that's
diverse
a
perspectives.
big-
So
that's a big
yeah.
a big discussion inside of mathematics, like basically at a fundamental level, because
Right.
infinities don't really exist, but they're convenient. And you have some other mathematicians who are like, no, we have to rebuild it up based on observation.
So how exactly did that rift form, right, from people who kind of believe, in this like purity, right, that like, oh, math should kind of only exist on like, a flat plane, or like infinity is, infinity, it shouldn't be more complicated than that. And then, you have people like you who are saying, no, it should be, it's more complicated, it's based on, your perspective.
And you will remember from my slides, it gave mathematicians hell. They couldn't sleep for weeks. They just don't like that part of it. And actually, around the turn of the century, there was a big disagreement in mathematics of like what should be like the simplest issue. They are crazy about everything. It's called the axiom of choice, which means how do I pick something? That's it. And that caused a fundamental breakdown in all of the mathematicians. They had to rewrite the book, and it took like 250 pages just to prove like 1 + 1 = 2. Yeah, mathematicians are a crazy bunch, but I do like them. Maybe because I'm one of them.
Can I ask like one more question?
Sure.
I think this is my original question, but
Sorry.
no,
I told you that we're a crazy bunch. Professionally, yeah.
I was just wondering, so since mathematics, started from observing the natural world, I assume, how did we kind of get to this notion of pure mathematics, right? That like parallel lines should always be parallel and not converge.
I don't want to necessarily offend anybody, but it happened. A big part of it was based on religion, right? That like there's God, there's pure, everything is perfect and falls into place. Like even Isaac Newton, who was a phenomenal guy, he said, I can't remember his poem, but it was something like, and God made mathematics and it brought light into the world, right? It doesn't rhyme. Forgive me. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, even someone as prolific as Isaac Newton, he wanted to force some order onto the natural world. And it was only kind of recently where people broke the rules, even though they like basically cried themselves to sleep. And then you had this big crisis at the turn of the 20th century, where it's like, okay, we have to rethink everything and start from the basic. How do we even know 1 + 1 = 2? It's such a crazy question. It took 150. I don't encourage you to read that. You're just going to go insane. Right. But I mean, on an everyday basis, it's a good approximation, right? But like, for example, I can give you like another example where 1 + 1 doesn't necessarily equal 2. If I have an apple and a banana, you can't quite add them together. You have 1 apple and 1 banana. They don't exist in a system where you can combine them. But if you change your perspective and you can say, I have 2 fruit, right? So you can say, I have 1 apple and 1 banana, or I have 2 fruit, and they're both very valid answers. And mathematicians weren't really asking this until about the early 1900s, about how to algebraically combine systems. Yeah, I don't know. I told you I'm a professional yapper, so yeah.
I think, right, we have kind of this natural bias to kind of predict things,
Yeah, and that's why I'm kind of passionate about this, to show it from a different perspective. And this is what I hope is taught in schools and high schools. But once again, I said, you don't really learn this until you get to university and you have to break down all your perspectives. Because, okay, look, I'm definitely very empathetic, and I know a lot of people just want to do their taxes, right? So like, adding a couple of numbers, that's all I need. But then I feel like there's this beautiful philosophical side that is being missed out on. Because like, for example, we talk about infinity, right? And it's people have like a vague notion. They've never tried to actually explore it and see that there's infinities inside of infinities and different sizes of infinity. And these kind of things can really help change your perspective. But it's just, and I'm empathetic to high school teachers and whatnot, because you have to kind of go a little bit insane, and they just want a salary. So, thank you for your question.
Thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. When we're talking about ideals, I'm a physicist, by the way, so we love the practicality of everything. So
Lovely. You're already my best friend.
yes, exactly. So it's very interesting to see like different perspective from the idealistic, like
if you don't ask me, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do in physics?
I'm doing quantum computing.
Okay, so you're one of the crazy ones too.
So, but one question is, well, the rule about parallel lines, like when there are two ideal parallel lines, like in a flat regions, they will always like parallel unless there's like a hidden like unflatness of the properties, right?
Yes, but
it's just like a very
no.
question.
Of course, you're completely right. It behaves according to Euclidean geometry. But what I do want to share as kind of a rebuttal is this image of art, right?
Okay.
Like this exists on a flat surface, but still we want to see them coming together. That's part of a geometry called projective geometry. Have you heard of it?
No, not really.
Okay.
It's quite new for me.
Maybe we can have a discussion.
Okay, that's interesting. So even in a flat surface, even when there's no like a hidden like exceptions to the flatness of the space, two parallel lines are still like perhaps like intersect at infinity.
Yes. That's basically the fundamentals of projective geometry. I can tell you're a physicist. I don't know how you got to that answer so quickly.
That's interesting. Okay, that's the innovation from
Yeah, at infinity, there's a whole kind of geometry this is started from like an artist's perspective, but mathematically, there is math behind it.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah,
I have to study more. Thank you.
This gentleman over here has been dying to ask a question.
Thank you very much for a nice talk. If you keep the Euclid's postulate about parallel lines, but give up another one, will you obtain something interesting?
But the thing is that what the other mathematicians, they found the other four to be self-evident. Like you don't need to prove it. The one thing they couldn't find self-evident, which kept them up at night, was this thing with the parallel lines. Because I mean, for example, like the first postulate, if I have a point and a point, I should be able to connect them. That's basically so self-evident. If I have a line going this way and this way, I can extend it forever. Yeah, I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be true. But what plagued the mathematicians for centuries was this fifth rule. It felt like it should be self-evident, but they couldn't convince themselves.
So if you give up the postulate about one line, 2 points, then nothing makes sense.
Yeah. Because I can draw you a line right here, like.
So mathematics breaks down.
Yeah. Then you don't have anything to work with really. Like you don't really have geometry as the concept. Like one of the other postulates was, okay, if I have a circle, it has a center and a diameter. Like I don't know how. Can you find a reason why that's not true? I don't know. Without breaking the whole of geometry.
Just maybe you cannot prove some theories because
Okay.
without that postulate.
Yeah.
Because
So
if you leave all these
Yes.
5 postulates, then it means
Yes.
that without even one of them,
Mhm.
you might be it's impossible to prove something. And
Yeah.
maybe you create some
So
interesting
in mathematics, as well as my physicist friend knows, you still have to work on some minimum degree of fundamental axioms. Like I'm going to assume that there's an atom. If you don't have atoms, we can't do physics. I don't know. Like there are still fundamental axioms. It's about questioning which are right, which are not. And the other 4 felt very self-evident. The 5th one, once again, I show this picture, like the artist had a great imagination. They knew that for a good perspective, the parallel lines have to meet in order to create the illusion of an image, right? Yeah, sorry, I don't know. Any further? Thank you for the question.
Okay, last question.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. It was interesting.
Thank you.
And thank you for touching on the axioms, because I was trying to rack my brain, like, isn't math supposed to be like building upon axioms? But yeah, you've touched it, and like we do have some like truths that we have to just believe, right?
Mm-hmm. Like, for example, on a sphere, I can still connect 2 points, but
Right.
the parallel line isn't necessarily true.
Right. So yeah, my question is kind of not related per se to your to the points that you've touched on.
Okay.
But I heard this question a long time ago.
Okay.
I just want to know what you think about it, because you're a mathematician.
Kind of.
You are.
It's very hard.
So, do you think math is invented or discovered?
Yeah. I definitely have the majority position, and I'd say it's invented because you can just reformulate it in a different way and then come at the same conclusion.
Sorry, can you speak up? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Oh shit.
Okay, sorry.
Wait.
Sorry, just repeat what you said. Sorry.
Yeah. Damn. What was the question now? Sorry.
Invented or discovered?
Okay. I think it's invented because fundamentally it's a language of explanation, right? It's like we can exist in Tokyo and you can speak Japanese and get on with life, or you can come to Australia and just you use English, right? That's a method of conveying the underlying message that you're trying to get towards. Now, there are a few axioms that it's not, it doesn't feel invented, it just feels more like self-evident. Like, once again, I go back to the point, you have a point, you should be able to draw a line in whichever way possible, so that's the language, like I can make it curved or come all the way around or something. But without these few fundamental axioms, you then cannot invent further mathematics. And I think I've given you a few examples of invention. For example, the 12 plus 1 equals 1, right? I invented that I could wrap the number line. Who told me to do that? I don't know. Maybe the clock designers. They have to make a profit. However, like when you go back to other ancient cultures, like it's this straight number line thing is a very Western perspective. Like if you look at the Indians' perspective on time, it works in a cycle, but they've existed for thousands of years. Even the Chinese perspective, like dynasties come and dynasties fall, right? There is a circular nature to this whole other like 3 billion people, right? So it's not necessarily that God, I'm at a loss.
That time is linear. It's not linear. Right?
Yeah, but I'm trying to make a bigger point in that it is invented because the East and the West have been doing it very differently, and they still come to the same kind of conclusions, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sweet. Okay. Nice.
Thank you so much for your talk and for the discussion afterwards. We're out of time for questions, but if you want to sing Take Me Home Country Roads.
I just think I need a beer, man.
Great. So speaking of which, we're going to take about a 20-minute break from now and come back at about 9:15, 9:20. This is the last call for the bar, so please be sure to patronize the bar.
Yes.
Talk to your neighbors and speculate on
I'm
mathematics.
Australian. How can there be a law before the law? Come on. I grew up in bars fighting kangaroos.
A little more.
Yeah.
Were you fighting the kangaroos for the beer?
Good question. It was also blurry. I don't know. But at the end of the day, we made peace.
Okay.
Right, so please enjoy the bar. Come back in about 20 minutes and we'll have our next speaker. Thank you.
I also drew for a while, but I still have the digital tablet, but like I fell out of it, unfortunately.
Biography of some mathematician. And then he said that, okay, this is about this special relativity. When you see that kind of stuff out to the speed of light must be invariant. Wait, what's that? He's being a bit rude. This is from a YouTuber. Oh yeah. Situations and he kind of infer.
Let's get ready to go. We're going to have to start with
So cameras are ready. Cameras are rolling, I should say.
Yeah, exactly.
Alright, folks, we're going to start making your way back to your seats, please. We'll get started on this
limit to the model to break the whole text down. So that's the thing. But because the whole text is very big, you end up having those it's not like they're not like we don't know I mean that's true for the language if you
Alright folks, it's time for us to get started. If you're still arguing about whether or not mathematics is discovered or invented, you have to consider that a little bit later on. Okay, before we move on to our next speaker, we have a couple of community announcements to make. We are not the only events in Tokyo. There are lots of other things you can do throughout the month, and there's some events that we'd like to promote. Starting with this one. Selena.
Yeah, starting with this one. I'm just gonna take this if it's too tall for me. Hi everyone, thanks so much for coming tonight. Sorry for the sound issues tonight. We are one man down and lots of tech down, so thank you for your patience with that. I just want to bring attention to an upcoming event called Journey to the End of the Night. Some of you may know it from a few years ago. We haven't done it since COVID, but it's back, baby. So Journey to the End of the Night is like a game of tag, or like onigoko mixed with like an escape room around Tokyo. So basically there's a group of runners and they're trying to get from checkpoint to checkpoint, complete the activity and get to the next one without getting tagged by the chasers. If they get tagged, they become a chaser. So as the night progresses, the balance shifts and it gets more and more challenging, more and more exciting. And as you complete the tasks, you find out more and more about the story that we have created for you to experience. So this year's journey is going to be November 8th, which is a Saturday. It's in the evening. You do not have to be athletic. You don't actually have to run. You can take a train. You can get creative with it. If you find a horse, it's yours. Yeah, it's a really fun night. At the end, there's a big party in the park. It's a great chance to meet new friends, have a great, exciting night, maybe seeing a new area of Tokyo. There are multiple ways you can get involved. One is to be on the production side of things. So if you think it sounds fun to run one of those checkpoints, you can help create the activities that people do. You can also help us behind the scenes with social media, translation, video, photography, scaring off the police when they come talk to us. If you look really intimidating or really, really nice, let me know. So there are a lot of things in the background that you can participate in, or you can join it as a literal runner. And so it's here, this QR code is our Facebook page. So you can scan that. We'll be announcing things there. If you're interested in participating, you can also talk to me. And no, am I missing anything? I think that's about it.
What day of the week is that?
It's a Saturday. It's a Saturday. It's a really fun event. It's great. So please join.
Does that last the whole night then? Is that the
It doesn't actually last the whole night unless you want it to. It starts at like 6 p.m. So you'll finish in a few hours, depending on your pace. And then you can chill at the after party for however long. Some of us will probably be there all night, but you do not have to be. So it's Journey to the End of the whenever you feel like going home. But it's not as catchy to write on the promotional material. So yeah, hope to see you guys there, or hope to have you join the creative process. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you didn't catch the link up here from the QR code, we'll be sharing this on the Nerd Night SNS in the next couple of days. Right, next up is Space Cafe.
Very bright. Hi everyone, I'm Tilina. So just like the Nerd Night, there's another kind of sister event, Space Cafe, which is in Shimokitazawa, and it's organized by a bunch of nerds, astronomers. So myself and Ken here in the back, and then we have also Maiko, who's at the observatory, Todai. So we meet once a month. It's an excuse to get drinks and also hang out with public and talking about cool science we do. And the next event is on next Thursday. It is not a Star Wars, and it's nothing to do with Star Wars, but maybe there were some rogue planets by the time that Earth was forming. And we, I don't know if you were following news, but very recently in July, the Subaru telescope found a new asteroid, like really way out there. It's one of the biggest, and it's one of the sort of like reasons to think that there were big, actually rogue planets way in the beginning of the solar system. But you can find out if you come next Thursday to Shimokurazawa. It's Good Heavens British pub, so you can get some drinks, and when you have a bit more tipsy, you can ask questions. All the questions get interesting when you're tipsy. So see you all there on next Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Tokyo Humanities. Is anyone here tonight from Tokyo Humanities who would like to talk about this? Okay. Oh, okay. I was like, okay. Yes. That's right. We can thank Tokyo Humanities for our ability to do this event in this space, in fact. So their events are not every month, but they are, several times a year. Please look them up. You can find them on Facebook, and I think they even have a homepage now. Right. Moving on to our next speaker of the night. I'm going to probably mispronounce your last name again. Stéfan Le Dû.
Perfect. That's amazing.
So, this is actually Stéfan's second time speaking at Nerd Night. We're glad to have him back. Stéfan leads Studio Ichigo, a small agency offering sustainability education and advisory services to organizations in Japan using ideas and formats from Europe. He loves rock music and plays drums in two bands, the French Toast and the Famichiki. I've seen the French Toast live. They're awesome. You should check them out. Since last year, he has been organizing Too Hot to Be Cool, a rock concert series raising money for climate change action in Southeast Asia. And of course, this talk is about video games, so you can ask him later what games he's been playing lately. So with that, let's take it away.
Okay.
We need 1 second to
Reset the camera, please.
Gives me 1 second to find.
Thank you.
Oops. Sorry, just one.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Andrew, and the team for having me. I guess my talk last year was not as boring as I thought because I've been invited to speak again tonight. So, as mentioned by Andrew, I work in sustainability. I play video games as well, so tonight it's kind of a combo of those two topics. I will talk to you about how climate change is representing in the Civilization video game series. Before going into the detail, we start like in all good video games with a tutorial, with a few reminders. And before that, I will start with two questions. The first one, who played at least one of the game of the Civilization series? Okay, so maybe 20%. There will be an explanation for those who never played, so you will understand what this game is about. Second quick question, who experienced climate change?
In reality or in
experience?
In reality. If you don't raise your hand, I'm wondering on what planet you live and where you were this summer. If you lived in a fridge or, you don't know. Alright, so we have those topics that will be combined in the presentation, and I will start with a quick reminder on both. First, on Civilization, to save time, because I have 20 minutes, I will say Civ, which is a nickname for Civilization, instead of repeating every time, so it will be Civ from now. I've been playing Civ since I was in junior high school, so I played the first game on Amiga 600 here. And then I played all the games in the series, the second one on PlayStation, and then the rest on PC. So I've been following the series since 1992 or 93. You can guess my age from this information. And it kind of influenced my career choice, actually. It's another story, so I will not get into the detail, but the reason I work in sustainability now is kind of connected to those strategy games and city building games I was playing when I was a teenager. Okay, so for those who didn't raise their hand on my question, what is Civ? A quick explanation. It's basically a game where you play with human history, but reimagined. So it's a uchronie. We use elements from real history, so real leaders like Napoleon, Gandhi, George Washington, etc. We play with real civilization, real technologies, but you will use those elements to recreate your own history throughout the game. It's a turn-based game, so it's very similar to a board game, except that the scale and the complexity is much higher because it's handled by the computer. Played on a world map. You start in 4000 BC, and you end usually the game around the current times, 2000 or a bit earlier or a bit later. Throughout the game, you make choices in where to build your cities, which technologies you will discover, and then will you attack your neighbors or will you trade with them. The world map is organized in tiles. It's very important to understand that for the rest of the presentation. So as you can see, we have small squares on the first game, and in the more recent version, it's a bit more sophisticated, but you can still see tiles. So the tile is the most precious resource in the game. It's like chess or Othello. You need to conquer the tiles to develop your strategy. Another important thing in this game, as I mentioned, is turn-based. So you make a decision at one turn, and then the next turn you will see the results. A small decision you make now can have impacts 10, 20, 50 turns later. So there's this, I would say, long-term planning element that's very important also to understand for the rest of the presentation. This game has seen 7 main iterations so far. The last one was released this year, actually. So I say main because there's also expansion. There's also now some versions on smartphone, but the main game is 7 episodes. And in terms of popularity, to give you an idea, it's between Street Fighter, Metal Gear, and on the right, Dragon Quest, Monster Hunter. So it's quite mainstream, with 70 million copies sold since the creation of the series. I realized I didn't start my timer, so I have no idea if I'm on time for this presentation.
You have 12 minutes.
Sorry?
You have 12 minutes.
Okay. So I'm in. How to play Civilization quickly. You start with just one settler. You are in the middle of a map, which is dark. You don't know what's around you. You start exploring. You build your first city, and from this first city, you will be able to build new settlers to create more cities. You will be able to develop that city by improving the tiles around it. And those tiles will give you resources to grow your population, to research technologies, etc. So that's how you grow your civilization through the game. And then you will expand on the map. You will meet your neighbors, decide what to do with them, attack or befriend. You will discover more and more technologies as you advance through history. So at some point, you discover mathematics, for example, which allows you in the first game to build catapults that will allow you to conquer your neighbors. And then, in the first game, you win the game either by conquering all other cities, so you conquer the world, and you beat everyone else, or you are the first player to send a spaceship to Alpha Centauri, which is a nearby solar system of galaxy. I'm not sure, sorry for the astrophysicists in the room. So you have those two conditions. You can choose whichever you want to win the game. Later, more conditions were added, like a cultural victory, religion victory, diplomatic victory. Alright, so those are the basics of the game. It's been common throughout the series, and then on top of that, there are layers of complexities that have been added with each iteration of the game. That's the reminder on civilization. Now the reminder on climate change. The Earth is getting warmer faster than ever, as you experienced this summer again in Tokyo, but not only in Tokyo, in every part of the world. The main cause is the burning of fossil fuels for human activities. This releases greenhouse gases that trap heat in the atmosphere, leading to heat waves, floods, droughts, depending on where you live, is different catastrophe, but you have issues everywhere. Going to effects on humanity like famines, pandemics, and displacement of populations. One thing that's important to understand about climate change in real life, but also for how it's implemented in the game, is that many pollution types are local. If you throw plastic in the street, it will stay in the street. The difference with climate change is that you release CO2, it goes in the atmosphere, and then the consequences are for everyone on Earth. So it's like sending something up in the air, and then the effects will fall down everywhere else on Earth. So it's coming from local, but it's going to global. Important to remember that for the rest of the presentation as well. All right, so now let's dive into how climate change is implemented in C. We will go through the different games. I will focus more on the 6th episode because it's where it's more developed. But I will go in order. Before looking at the first game, which was released in 1991, this is where we are as a society globally in terms of climate awareness in 1991. We have had decades of disinformation campaigns by oil and gas companies from the 70s to negate the reality of climate change. So they paid ads in magazines and the media, etc., to basically say there's no climate change. You can see an example on the left. And we are just starting to wake up. So we have the first IPCC report in 1990. IPCC is the UN body that gathers all climate science from all over the world and help policymakers make decisions about the climate. So the first report was in 1990, and we are still 1 year before the Rio Climate Summit, which was in 1992, which was kind of the first big international event raising awareness about sustainability and climate change. So that's where we are. Basically, no one really cares about climate change. Some people start to wake up, but it's not really a widespread topic like it is today. So the first game, Civilization VII, is released in 1991. I gather also the second episode on that slide because the game mechanics are very similar between Civ 1 and Civ 2. The way it works is that your cities will, at some point, randomly, when they grow, generate pollution on a nearby tile. You can see here in black, it's the pollution near the city of Nicopolis here. So you have pollution appearing on some tiles on the map. When, in the first game, 16 tiles on the whole map of the world are polluted, there's a risk at each turn that climate change happens. So it's really already this mechanic of local to global that is implemented. And when climate change happens, some tiles, again, randomly on the map, will be degraded. For example, grasslands will become plains, which give less food. And plains will become desert, which gives zero food at all. And coastal tiles will become swamp. So you have already this idea of degrading nature and the resources that you need to grow your cities because of climate change. The limit of the system at that time is that if you clean the local pollution, climate change stops immediately. So you can remove the risk by cleaning around your city. So it's not how climate change happens in real life, because once CO2 is in the atmosphere, you cannot remove it. We don't have the technology yet to do that. So there's not this irreversibility dimension of climate change. Still, it's quite advanced at that time, because as I mentioned, 1991, no one cares about climate change, and you have this implemented in a mainstream video. So that's Civ 1 and Civ 2. We have also renewable energy already at that time, hydropower in Civ 1, and in Civ 2, solar is also added. You can use those buildings in your cities to have a lower risk of pollution compared to coal power plants. So there's already this idea that coal is generating pollution and climate change, while renewable are not. This story made the headlines a few years ago. A guy played the same game of Civ 2 for 10 years, because after you finish the game, around 2000, you can still continue. Even if someone has won the game, you can continue forever. So click one more turn, and see where it takes you. So we play the same game for 10 years, seeing what happens after a very long time, and he ended with Earth covered with pollution everywhere, no more food, so population cannot live anymore in cities, and basically a global catastrophe. This story made the headline on CNN, so it's something that is, I would say, quite funny to see this simulation in a video game about the incompatibility of infinite growth with the resources of Earth, again in a video game, while some politicians now still don't understand that impossibility. All right, let's move to Civ 3, released in 2001. So here, the main addition compared to Civ 1 and 2 is that global pollution pool is created, it's hidden, so players cannot see the value in that pool. And that pool is fed by pollution events that happen in cities. If you build an airport, some points will go to the pool. If your population grows, some points will go to the pool after certain thresholds. So the pool grows higher and higher, and at some point, the game will decide, okay, the value reaches the level where climate change should happen. And then it's the same as in C1 and C2. You will have tiles that will be degraded against, for example, plains becoming desert. What's interesting here compared to the first game is that even if you clean your cities, after the pool have reached the threshold, you cannot stop climate change. So the irreversibility of climate change is implemented from this episode. You still need to clean the pollution in your cities because it's reducing the food yield and production yield of the tiles to develop your cities, but it will not stop climate change. This problem will stay in the game until the end of the game. The ecology appears for the first time in the technology tree. Technology tree is all the text you can discover through the history of the game. So you have a limited number of technologies coming from real history. Ecology appears for the first time as a technology itself in Civ 3. It allows you to research recycling, for example. You can also not make, you cannot see maybe, but it's stealth fighters. You cannot discover stealth fighters if you do not have research ecology. So if you go for a military victory, you still need to go through ecology at some point, otherwise you cannot have those fighters. Okay, the weaknesses, I would say, in that game, there's some diplomacy involved in those games, of course, but even if Civ 3 is released 4 years after the Kyoto Protocol was signed, there's nothing really about climate diplomacy in the game yet. It's only the mechanics that I mentioned. Okay. Another thing is that nuclear explosions generate climate change. So it's been the case in Civ 1 and Civ 2, Civ 3 again. In reality, it's the opposite. Scientists know that nuclear war would lead to nuclear winter. It will cool the atmosphere. Here in the game, it's the opposite. It will warm the climate. Civ 4, here the mechanics are completely different. The developers introduced an indicator for cities which measure health. So your city can be healthy or unhealthy depending on the buildings you have, the population. So if you have hospital, it's more healthy. If you have a factory or airport, it's less healthy. And the unhealthy buildings will contribute again to global pollution pool. Some events also, again nuclear explosions, population growth will grow the pool, and again when the pool is reaching a certain level, climate change will happen. So this link between health and climate change is interesting. The limit is that it's not working the other way. They could have gone one step further, and like in real life, if there's climate change, you can also have a malus on the health in your cities. It's not in the game. An interesting addition in that game also is that for the first time, there's the idea of nature-based solutions that we have in real world. We need nature to address climate change. We have this in the game as well, in the sense that the number of forest or jungle tiles that you have on the world map is reducing the risk of climate change. So if you cut all forest at the beginning to expand your cities in 2000 BC, when you reach the industrial revolution age, you will have a higher risk of climate change. All right. Another limit is that recycling centers remove all the malus of all the buildings in your city. So you just do one recycling center, it will cancel the pollution of your airport, factories, forge, whatever you have as polluting. So it's a bit, I would say, exaggerating the power of recycling compared to what we know in reality. Civ 5. 2010, surprisingly, there's no climate change anymore in that game. The focus here is more on resource management. So there's still coal and oil, but it's only resources that you need to unlock certain buildings or certain units. So if you want to build a tank, or if you want to build a factory, you need to have coal or oil in your tiles. But there's no pollution associated to that, and of course no climate change. I'm not sure why. My personal assumption is this game came after the economic crisis, the big global crisis, 2007, 2009. So my assumption is that maybe they prefer to focus on the idea of resource management and economic more than climate change, which is at that time still seen as an environmental issue. Okay, so before we move to Civ 6, where are we on those years? So 2005 to 2019, when Civ 4, 5 and 6 were released. 2005, the Kyoto Protocol comes into force. 1 year later, Al Gore wins an Oscar for An Inconvenient Truth, which was kind of the first movie that really made climate change a topic for mainstream audience. 2015, adoption of the Paris Agreement. Historic not only because it's the first climate treaty that is adopted by all countries, but also because it's the first treaty in the history of humanity adopted by all countries in any domain. It's the first time that all countries, including North Korea, including all those rock states, also signed the Paris Agreement. 100% of nations agreed on that Paris Agreement. 3 years later, IPCC released another alarming report, and in 2019 we have this big explosion of youth protests started by Greta Thunberg and came to all countries in the world. So on this small chart we are kind of moving from the oops phase to the fuck phase by 2019, where everyone realized there's really a big problem and we are late in everything. Civ 6 comes in 2016. There's no climate change in the base game. It's added with an expansion in 2019. They took the time to develop the system well. So we have very developed game mechanics that I will cover in the next slide. The first one is more energy options. You can see through the game that we have the broadest range of options. In addition to solar and hydropower that have been there through almost all the games, we also have wind farms and geothermals, so 4 sources of renewable energy in this game. We have a climate dashboard. It's kind of an IPCC report in the game where you can see the level of climate change here, the CO2 level, global temperature increase, how much polar ice have been lost, the sea level rise, and the increase in extreme weather events, because in Civ 6 you have storms, you have floods, etc., that become more frequent when climate change appears. You can also see which player emitted how much CO2, so you have this idea of attribution. You can know if it's China or the US that you need to blame and maybe attack if you want to stop them to emit CO2. The impact of climate change in Civ 6, you have coastal flooding, so some tiles can be permanently underwater. As I mentioned at the beginning, tiles are the most important resource in this game, so if you lose tile because of submersion, you lose a very precious resource. More frequent storms and flood, more drought, so lower food production, which can lead to famine in your cities. The impacts remain, I would say, limited compared to the real world in the sense that you can still win the game with, while ignoring climate change and those impacts. Players can adjust through mitigation and adaptation, something also very important. In climate action, you have two things. You have mitigation. It's everything we do to avoid emitting CO2, and adaptation, everything we do to protect our cities and economies from climate change because it's happening anyway. You have the two aspects in the game. You can build renewable energy, as I mentioned, and you can also, when you have, for example, submersion, you can still build on the sea with the seastead, offshore wind, etc. You can also build flood barrier here to protect your cities from submersion. The critique is that it's a bit too easy to protect your civilization from climate change with those fixes, those tech solutions. You can also remove CO2 from the atmosphere with carbon storage, which is in reality not available at scale yet, and still a controversial technology. I will skip this because I'm late. Civ 7 was released this year. There's no climate change yet in the game. Probably they will do the same as Civ 6 and release a full-fledged system in 2 or 3 years. There are already some weather events, storms happen, but it's completely random at the moment. It's not driven by pollution. Okay, so that's where we are now, 2025. More and more IPCC reports alarming about the effects of climate change. The last 3 years have been the hottest on record in the world. The planetary boundaries that define the ability of Earth, there are 9 boundaries, we have crossed 6 of them. And we have now a wave of climate disinformation coming, including from some governments. I will not give any name, you have a photo on the slide. My personal wish list for Civ 7, quickly, I'm already over time. I would like the game to make climate action unavoidable. In Civ 6, even though it's developed, you can still ignore it. You can focus on completely different strategies, and even if there's climate change, you can still win the game. I would like in Civ 7 that it's impossible for any player to win the game if there's climate change, to force cooperation or destruction of the civilizations that are emitting CO2. You can choose the way to any, I would say, solve the problem, but it should be a condition. You cannot win the game if there's climate change. More unpredictability. We have seen in recent years that some tipping points have been crossed faster than what scientists predicted. This unpredictability is not yet in the game, so you can know even from 4000 BC when you build your first city in Civ 6, you will already know which tiles will be submerged. 6,000 years later, if climate change happens. In reality, it's not like this. So there should be a bit more unpredictability, deeper impacts, famine, migration, civil unrest, etc., and stronger diplomacy. For example, we could have a system where civilization votes to implement a price on carbon, global, and if there's a majority of votes, then everyone has to pay, which means if you're a big polluter, you will lose financial resources in your civ, and it will slow your progress. Okay, I will skip this, it's just a conclusion, but it's, yeah, I'm out of time already. I just wanted to mention there's 4 other games. So what's interesting with Civ is that it's not a game about climate change, it's a game about world history and strategy. So some people play it, even though they don't care about the environment or climate change, they will be exposed to the topic. Some people got upset, of course, on forums. It's a left-wing propaganda, they put climate change in simulation, blah, 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 we will not play this game ever again. So it's kind of forcing the topic onto players that maybe would not go towards the topic naturally. Those games are a bit different because they are focused on ecology or environment. Synergy, it's a game where you build a city, but you need to do it in synergy with your environment. Terranil is very interesting because it's a reverse city builder. Usually in city builder, you will take nature to build your city. Here, you inherit from destroyed cities, and you will need to return to nature and recreate the ecosystem. And this one ending, you are the last mother fox on Earth, and you need to protect your baby fox in a world that's been destroyed by climate change. So it's more kind of exploration adventure game. And that's it. We have events coming November 9 in Minato, sustainability workshops, and the next two Hot to Be Cool mentioned by Andrew, thank you, December 6th in Shibuya. And I'm very much out of time, sorry, but I hope we can take a few minutes for questions. Thank you very much.
And then we still do have time for 10 to 15 minutes of questions.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
Wait, Mike, over here.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation and the amazing slides. I would like to ask, how do you think a game like Civ can be used in terms of education? Because it feels like the impact to people on the forums are sort of incidental. So there are people who would play the game and just not apply that to real life. So from your perspective, especially as a founder, how do you think games like this can help education?
You mean sustainability education or education in general?
Both, I guess.
So in education in general, those games help understand system thinking and the fact that some small actions combined together can have very big impact. So connection of dots between different topics, this kind of, I would say, awareness of the world history and the fact that if you discover mathematics, then you can have catapults, but you can also build aqueducts to develop your city. So there's this kind of, I would say, education about history, even though it's revisited. You understand how we are here now in 2025 with all those technologies around us, and the tensions also between nations, why they appeared. So there's this kind of general history education. On sustainability, as I mentioned, it's not a game about sustainability or climate change. So there are better games to educate on that topic, like the one I just mentioned, like Synergy or Terranil, for example. It's still, I think, a good tool to educate people who would not, as mentioned, go naturally toward a class or a lecture about scientific, because it's forced upon the players. If you play the game, even if you don't believe in climate change, you will still have climate change happening, and some people will still think it's fantasy and hooks, but some people who are in between, maybe the fact that it's coming to them in the game will make them think, okay, maybe I need to read a bit more about this. So it's simplified, but it's a way to guide people who are maybe wanting to know more about the topic.
Thank you for sharing. My question would be, if you pay attention to climate finance, I think you would notice the recent change in people's attitudes towards climate change. Not only organizations like BlackRock, they are stopping using the term sustainability or climate finance. I think this attitude is even impacting people in Europe who used to be like the most firm supporters to all these ideas. So I'm just wondering, does this change ever influence your personal belief in the idea of sustainability and climate change? This is question one. Sorry, a quick follow-up question is that there's always trade-off, right? As human beings, we have limited resources. There are so many issues we have to resolve. Is climate change the most important thing ever? Right now we have AI. Well, human beings are dying anyhow, either because it's too hot or because AI is gonna do something to us. So, what's your take?
Yeah, I will take the first question. So first, it's not a personal belief in climate change; it's science. If I drop this fall, will it go up or down? Gravity will take it down. So climate change is the same. It's science. What's happening now is a backlash against science, but science is still science.
Within a community.
Sorry?
Science in a community.
No.
No.
US with access from, I think it's the Paris Agreement. If a country like the United States, they can decide that we're not going to be part of the
Yeah.
agreement.
But the science doesn't change. The science is the science, and then some people can decide to follow science or not. What's happening now is a backlash. I think we are in oscillating systems. As we saw in the timeline, before the 1990s, no one really cared. Then there's been an increase of attention until that kind of culminated in 2020, I would say. And now we are going back because it created some pressure with new regulations, so it got some people upset. We are going a bit backward, but the science is clear, and the effects of climate change are happening anyway, so we are going to go back in this oscillating system because people will realize that we need to do something at some point, and will ask again for stronger policies and action. So it's just now some governments are going backwards. It doesn't mean that the course of natural physics of Earth are going backwards as well.
It's okay. I just know that there are also scientists in geology who believe that there could be multiple reasons causing climate change. Human activities is important, but maybe this is not the only one.
Yeah, so it's a different topic as the one discussed today. We have workshops to explain climate change. You are welcome to join. And okay, but I don't know where you say that, but it's a different science than the one that is admitted by the majority of scientists in the world.
It's not saying I don't agree with you. I appreciate this. I just want to give you a different perspective.
Again, if I drop this phone, is it going up or down? There's scientific reality. What was your second question? Sorry, I forgot.
A trade-off. Why climate change might be the top priorities to address?
Well, first, it shouldn't be the top priority because we have other issues. As I mentioned, we have 9 planetary boundaries. 6 have been crossed already. So we have ocean acidification coming soon as well. Biodiversity collapse. All of that should be at the same level. But because we are not very good at considering problem as a whole, we tend to try to solve them one by one. But we should care also about the other problems on the ability of Earth, like ecosystems, plastic pollution, etc.
I need to break this stuff down.
Why we need to address climate change is because if we don't do it, we will all disappear. At some point, there will be famine, there will be some migration of population because they cannot live in their country anymore. There will be more pandemics, etc. So the cost will be superior to what it costs to address the problem. The more we wait, the higher the bill will be for the future, so it's also a question of responsibility for future generations. We can keep living as we are living now and not addressing the problem. It's just putting the bill to the next ones coming, and the bill is going higher as we wait longer to take action. So it's also a financial question in that sense.
I'm so sorry, just for time, we're going to have to move on to the next question. Thank you so much.
No, Selena just said it. We have time for one more question.
Short one, please.
And yeah, short question with a short answer.
There's one gentleman. Ah, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you for the talk. I can't guarantee a short question with a short answer. However, one thing that really stuck out to me in your talk is the fact that, okay, they include climate change and they remove it, and then hopefully it's coming back. This feels like there is a abject politicalization of this game, right? And so, if you're trying to use these simulations to try to have a prediction, what kind of guarantee do you have that your analysis will be free from a biased political perspective?
Well, again, because the game, of course, it's simplified, but it's based on real history and real science. So they take the concept from the real world. They work with historians to choose which technology, for example, they will put in the tech tree and which units or buildings they will unlock. So it's all based on reality. Then it's simplified, of course. So because it's simplified, there are some biases that I explained. For example, in the way climate change is implemented, they cannot reproduce everything because it's very complex.
Yeah, but then like how can you guarantee that the use of this game is gonna have an impact on the world in the way that you predict?
You mean what you do in the game will simulate what happens in the real world?
Yes.
It's not the case because it's simplified. For example, I saw when I was researching for this presentation, one player played with the carbon removal technology. He did so much carbon removal that at some point the temperature was minus 11 degrees compared because the counters in the game didn't, and the developers didn't predict that some players would do that. What's interesting is that the sea didn't freeze, so there was not back to ice.
Exactly.
But because they have to simplify to make it accessible and.
Yeah, but I'm more asking for like the personal guarantee that the conclusions that you're coming to are correct and are reflective of the real world, based on a simplified setting.
I don't understand the question.
I think we may have to intervene
We
at
might
this
have to
point.
continue this one after.
Yeah, fair. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time and your presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, you're gonna use this.
I'm good.
All right.
All right, thank you so much. And unfortunately, we've already come to the end of the evening. Oh, I need to click.
Clicker's over there. Did you switch? Oh yeah, it's on the black screen.
Yep. So please be sure to continue all these conversations as we go along. We have to be out of this space by 10:30, so unfortunately, as soon as we wrap up, people will have to start moving out the door. Please be sure to be considerate of the neighbors as you're heading home, but please, continue these conversations as we go along. So before we break up, just another reminder, the next Nerd Night will be right here on Friday, October 17th. The announcement with the speakers will be coming up in just a few days. And then finally, I have a long list of thank yous to go through. All right, so first of all, first thank you is to Andrew Woolner, aka Canadian Andrew, for continuing to work on the show while he has been in rural Canada and on apparently a very poor internet connection. He did a lot of the graphics that you're seeing here today, a lot of the prep ahead of time, and is currently working on the promos for next month. Second of all, Melvin, for taking care. Yes. Melvin has been with us for a very long time, and this month he's taken over handling all of our technical stuff, running around, making sure all the cameras work, everything is set up properly, and carrying an extremely heavy backpack of equipment, which was mostly lent to him by Roger. I don't know if Roger is here tonight, but he has filled in and provided us with the cameras that you see here tonight and some of the other equipment so that we can record this and we'll be uploading it later. Let's see, also Rio. Rio no longer lives in Japan, she lives in California, and even so she helped us make the promotions for this month. So we really appreciate that. Then Gray, of course, has been leaned up over the speaker all evening, making sure that sound works properly. Coco and Selena. Yes. More applause. Coco and Selena for getting here, running here right from work, and making sure that we welcome everyone at the front and that everyone's questions get heard. Our YTG intern, so that's Yokohama Theater Group, intern Philip for making sure that everyone looks good in the camera this month, and for taking care of putting together our slides for this month as well. Daria couldn't make it this month. I just want to say thank you, and we're looking forward to having her back next month. John, one of our original Nerd Night founders, for being the backup to the backup MC. I'm not sure if he made it tonight, but if I couldn't have done it, he would have. To Roseanne Park for giving us this space to do this in every month. Yes. Thank you to our speakers. Of course, you're the reason that we're here, and as you see, they put an enormous amount of effort into the slides that they make. And finally, yes, applaud. Thank you one more time. And finally, to you, our audience. And I hope that I'll see most of you again, or all of you again, next month right here. And I think that's our, before I forget, if you'd like to speak at a future event, especially if you'd like to speak on a topic that the American government wouldn't want you to talk about, like, say, climate change, we're happy to have you here. So please come talk to me afterwards or send an email to us. Just contact us in some way, and I'll be happy to get you on the schedule. And I think that's it. Thank you so much. I'll see you next month. Wait. I have one more thing.
So casual. I totally forgot to mention the journey theme is under the water, hence the turtle. I was just like sitting here thinking, why is there a turtle on there? It's just a theme.
Okay, thanks again. See you next month.